The wig didn't make Lummy lie, it only spoke every time she did, and in a town where appearances mattered more than truth, that was dangerous. The town of Idera woke early, as it always did. Heat rose from the red earth, and the shouts of traders rolled through the narrow streets. Lummy moved through the market like a woman late for her own life, heels clicking, phone pressed to her ear, laughter sharpened to sound important. She stopped when she saw the wig, glossy, dark, impossibly full. It looked like confidence woven into strands. The vendor, an old woman with eyes too clear to be kind, leaned closer and said calmly,
"This wig reveals what you hide."
Lummy laughed, tossing her head.
Then it will be bored,
she replied, handing over the money. She didn't notice how the old woman never smiled, only watched, as if the purchase had already been paid for in another way. The next morning, Lummy wore the wig to work. Compliments followed her like perfume. She smiled wider, spoke louder, pretended she wasn't terrified of being seen as ordinary. When her supervisor asked if she could handle a presentation alone, she nodded confidently. Then the wig spoke. She is afraid. She practiced all night because she thinks she isn't enough. The room went silent. Lummy laughed too quickly, blaming a prank, but inside, her chest burned. The wig hadn't lied. It had only spoken what she buried beneath her posture and practiced confidence. From that day on, the wig developed a habit. Every exaggeration was corrected, every false smile was narrated. When Lummy claimed she was unbothered by office gossip, the wig announced her sleepless nights. When she pretended success came easily, it recited her private failures. People began watching her closely. Some laughed, others avoided her. Her confidence, once a costume, now felt like a trap she couldn't remove. She tried tying scarves over the wig, but the voice carried through fabric, calm and unafraid. At night, she stared at her reflection, wondering when pretending had become her only language, and why truth now felt like violence. On Sunday, Lummy went to church seeking silence. She sang louder than usual, lifted her hands higher, smiled at people she secretly resented. When the pastor spoke of forgiveness, she nodded vigorously. The wig leaned forward. She has not forgiven. She remembers every insult. She replaced them like prayers. Gasps rippled through the pews. Lummy fled before the service ended, heart pounding. Outside, the sun felt judgmental. Faith, she realized, had become another performance, one the wig refused to applaud. At home, alone, Lummy screamed and hurled the wig across the room. "You are ruining my life." The wig lay still for a moment, then it spoke softly. "I only repeat what you tell yourself." She sank onto the bed. In the quiet, memories surfaced, dreams abandoned, apologies never made, truth avoided because they were inconvenient. The wig hadn't invented her flaws, it had only given them a voice. She burned the wig, it returned, untouched. She buried it, it appeared on her dresser. She threw it into the river. It waited for her at home, dry and patient. Each return felt less like punishment, and more like insistence. The wig didn't mock, it didn't shout, it simply told the truth. Every time she tried to escape herself, exhausted, Lummy began to wonder, if silence had to be earned, avoidance became impossible. Friends stopped calling. At work, she was reassigned, alone. Lummy replayed her life, and saw how much energy she spent maintaining illusions. The wig spoke less now, but when it did, it went deeper. She does not know who she is without approval. For the first time, Lummy didn't argue. One evening, she sat before the mirror and asked quietly, "What do you want?" The wig answered without drama, "For you to stop running." She cried, not from shame, but relief. Honesty felt heavy, yet lighter than pretending. She admitted her fears aloud. The wig remained silent, as if listening was enough. Lummy began with small truths. At work, She asked for help. At church, she apologized instead of smiling. At home, she wrote down the dreams she'd been afraid to want. The wig spoke only once that week. This is real. Her life didn't improve overnight, but it finally felt like hers. She visited her mother and admitted the resentment she carried. The words trembled, but they held. The wig stayed quiet. For the first time, silence didn't feel like exposure, it felt earned. Lomi learned that humility wasn't shrinking, it was standing without decoration. She stopped explaining herself, stopped performing confidence. The wig rested easily on her head, no longer restless. One day, tempted to exaggerate her success, Lomi paused. She corrected herself mid-sentence. The wig didn't speak, she smiled. People noticed the change, not the wig, but the woman beneath it. Her honesty drew fewer admirers, but truer ones. The market felt less noisy now. Lomi returned to the market. The old vendor waited. She removed the wig and placed it gently on the table. It's quiet, Lomi said. The woman nodded. Then you are listening. Lomi walked home bareheaded. The wind touched her scalp, unfiltered. She felt no urge to cover herself. The wig never returned. It was no longer needed. Without the wig, Lomi noticed how loud the world still was, and how quiet she had become. Silence followed her now, not awkward, observant. She spoke less, listened more, and discovered that honesty did not need volume to be heard. When she admitted uncertainty, people leaned in instead of away. At night, she sometimes reached for her head. Instinctively, expecting the familiar weight, it was gone, yet the truth it once spoke had not left her. They echoed softly inside her, no longer accusations, but reminders. She slept better knowing. She no longer had to rehearse who she was going to be the next day. Opportunity came disguised as temptation. At work, Lomi was asked to present her progress to senior executives. She could exaggerate, no one would know. The old habit stirred, subtle, persuasive. She paused, chose restraint, and spoke plainly. The room did not erupt in applause, but afterward, one person stayed behind and said, "Thank you for being clear." It wasn't praise, but it felt earned. Lomi realized honesty didn't always bring applause, sometimes it brought trust, and trust lasted longer. Back at the market, people still whispered, stories traveled faster than truth. Some said the wig cursed her, others claimed it blessed her. Lomi let them talk. Their stories were no longer her responsibility. She passed the vendor's store one afternoon, and noticed it was empty, no sign, no trace. As if it had never existed. The market continued its noise, but Lomi walked through it untouched, carrying herself plainly. Without armor, Lomi learned that being ordinary was not failure, it was freedom. She no longer chased admiration. She cultivated alignment. Her relationships grew fewer, but steadier. Her faith grew quieter, but deeper. She no longer asked who she needed to be. She asked who she already was. The wig had taken her comfort, her pride, and her illusions, but it returned something more expensive, herself. Lomi understood now that pretending cost time, peace, and identity, and honesty, though uncomfortable, pays you back slowly. In truth, moral lesson, pretending is expensive. The lies you tell others are nothing compared to the lies you tell yourself. Growth begins the moment you stop performing and start being real. Thank you for walking this journey with me. If this story warmed your heart, made you reflect, or reminded you of the beauty in simple things, don't forget to subscribe to Fables by Timo for more tales that touch the heart and stir the soul. Until I bring you a new story, keep your heart open, and remember, every fable hides a truth. Bye for now.